My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave Dubois. And have you ever wondered how a simple investment in real estate can turn into a portfolio of profitable properties? That's a lot of P's in a row. Today, we have Laura Watson, a savvy real estate investor from Central Southern Alberta, here to share her success secrets. Laura, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks very much for having me. It's great to be here today.
So I always like to start with the backstory, kind of like a Marvel or DC thing. You know, what got you into real estate in the first place? A book, a person, a TV commercial? It comes from all different ways, but
Well, really just always had heard, I guess, had done a little bit of study around wealth creation, and real estate was one of the avenues that people were talking about. I followed Robert Kiyosaki, and so yeah, real estate was one of those avenues for building wealth. And so I guess our very first step into real estate was when we bought our first primary residence and totally freaked out about how much money we were spending at the time. It felt like a lot, but we knew it was the right thing to do.
yeah, the down payment and depending on how big the down payment is, your CMHC plus lawyers and closing costs on title, and yeah, it can add up.
Well, and all that stack of paperwork, the very first time signing off on that first purchase. Exactly. I thought we were signing our first child away, and our first child wasn't even born yet.
Well, it can be a daunting moment, but sit around and count, just do the math. You say my rent's $1,500 a month and $15,000 a year later, and you start going, well, maybe that could be my $15,000, or at least half, and me and the bank could split it, and I could own this thing. So,
Exactly.
interesting note here. Tell us a little bit more about the purchasing of your daughter's university housing.
Yeah, so that was really second, I guess our second foray into real estate investing. Our very first step was we were buying our second primary residence. We needed our family had grown, we needed a new place to live. And our mortgage broker actually had suggested to us that we refinance our original home, pull out the equity, use that equity towards the purchase of our new home, and keep our first home. And so we're like, oh, okay. So we did that, not completely clear on what we were doing, but we did it. Rented that out to a nice family for a couple of years. And then Calgary, I don't know if you know much about the Calgary market. It tends to be boom or bust, but we hit a boom in 2006 and thought, you know what, this rental property might on a regular market be a little more difficult to sell. So we put it on the market and we sold it in a day for 10 grand over list. So that gave us capital to then reinvest. So fast forward a few years, it was time for our daughter to go to university down in Lethbridge, which was a 2.5-hour drive from Calgary. Yeah. And we were really thinking, well, she can pay rent to somebody else or she can pay rent to us. So it's like, okay, and let's find her a nice place to live. My husband, called it girl-friendly house. So we found a nice, 4-bed, 2-bath house close to the university. And so purchased that home for her to live in along with 3 other students, and did that for 4 years until she moved out. And then we converted that house into a single family home rental versus a student rental. But it worked out really well. It felt good knowing she had a nice place to live.
Yeah, I had the same advice. The daughter, she's graduating this year, and I said, you should probably save up some money and buy that first place that you're going to live in and make everyone else pay the rent, because it's either you're going to pay rent to someone or they can pay rent to you. So what motivated you, your shift from investing on in the Vancouver Island to focusing more in Alberta?
Oh, yeah, good question. So originally we wanted to retire to Vancouver Island. That was the
Mhm.
dream.
Mhm.
And so we had a couple of properties actually down in Lethbridge. We bought the student house, we bought a second, and had a bit of additional capital. And because we wanted to retire on the island, thought, let's get in on the island. We anticipated at least the prices going nowhere but up. You're on an island, there's only so much real estate available. So we wanted to get into that market before it really went crazy. So we found a nice legally suited property right in North Nanaimo.
Yeah.
Our target is to buy in nice neighborhoods, family friendly, close to schools, parks, shopping, all that sort of thing. So that's what we did. We bought that home thinking that it will grow in value, and then we could use the proceeds from that to eventually buy something for ourselves. But
Mhm.
then COVID hit and things skyrocketed in the real estate market, especially on the island.
Yeah.
And as we were shopping for a place for ourselves, we just realized, we're not going to get what we want without having to do tons of renovations. Been there, done that. So we ended up sourcing, finding a home here in Alberta. We got
Mhm.
out of Calgary. We moved to an acreage that we absolutely love and hit all the bells and whistles and ticked all the boxes for us. So we didn't, with the idea of moving to the island gone and the extreme appreciation that we achieved on the island, that's when we decided, let's liquidate this and bring the money back home to Alberta.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And we sold that residence and we were able to turn that into 3 properties back here.
Yeah. And the balance between the BC market and the Alberta market, you definitely see that it's kind of capped out now, but if you got in and you bought in and you rode that and you got to kind of execute that, you certainly could buy 3 things for the price of one in Alberta. And that's, I think, why you
Mhm.
see a lot of people shifting their investment strategies to Alberta. Um, I'm not entirely convinced it's diversified enough that it's not a boom and bust province, but we'll see on the next shift.
Yeah.
They've been doing a lot of work to try to diversify the economy as
Mhm.
Alberta understands, Albertans understands, the premier understands. They all understand that it's an oil economy fundamentally, and they've got to diversify it a little bit broader to
Yes.
avoid that kind of it's like the barrel of oil, the value of Alberta. But
Yes.
it's getting better, and you're seeing that with how many people are deciding to invest there. Now,
Well,
yeah,
and
go ahead.
migration, right? Like
Yeah.
our federal government is bringing in people from around the world. We've got huge numbers around migration into the country, and then we have all kinds of migration into Alberta. Can't afford Ontario and
Mhm.
BC anymore, so they're coming to Alberta. And yes, we're diversifying. Alberta is taking on a lot more technology, IT, growing the green sectors as well. And then we've stayed out of Calgary and Edmonton. And now, because we're living in Central Alberta, we're investing in Central Alberta. And there's more diversity here around agriculture. So we're
Mhm.
not quite dependent on and even Lethbridge, the revenue streams down there are coming from agriculture, education, and healthcare. So we've stayed in those markets where there is more diversity in the economy.
Yeah, I mean, Lethbridge is a decent size, and you can find some property. I've had some investor friends work out in Lethbridge, and that's it's not the biggest market, but I guess it depends on like what your appetite is. If you really want to do a lot of stuff, you're probably gonna have to go to a major city, but to find 2 or 3 or 5 things in Lethbridge in a year, totally possible. Now, um,
They can be hidden secrets, right? Because a lot of investors go to those main centers. So,
mhm.
Lethbridge, Red Deer and the surrounding communities in central Alberta, I find are now these little hidden gems.
Yeah, you'll get an investor say, "Well, I don't do anything outside of Calgary," and you're like, "Okay, cool. I'll deal with this with the people that are doing southern central Alberta."
Yes.
So cash for keys, it's a strategy that we were talking about before the show. What is it that particularly with dealing with, tenants and things like that. Tell me a little bit more about where cash for keys comes in.
Amen. Yeah, that was an interesting challenge. So back to this Nanaimo property on the island. Like I said, it was legally suited. So I had a tenant up and a tenant down. The upstairs tenant just and I managing from a distance, so I wasn't able to see it as much, and especially couldn't get out there during COVID. So the upstairs tenant had not taken good care of the property, unfortunately. It was messy, it was dirty, it didn't smell good, and so when we came time to sell, we hired a realtor. They went in and they basically said, yeah, we'll list it, but I don't think we can sell this for you. And sure enough, we weren't getting any offers in a hot market. So, and BC has, some very strict rules on what you can do to have a tenant leave. So, but I found it came down to having a conversation. The tenants knew I wanted to sell the property. They were cooperative, actually. And so they tried to tidy up, but it wasn't enough. So after giving them a couple of opportunities to tidy up and help me out with the sale, I finally had to have a conversation with them and said, you know what, we need to come to an agreement to end the tenancy. That's the form that the BC government uses. And so that's the language I used when I had the conversation. And they said, yeah, we get it. So I said, how I did not frame it as cash for keys to the tenants. What I framed it to them as is like, I said to them, I understand moving is expensive. So I am willing to give you X amount to help you with your move if you're willing to move by a particular date. And I said, in fact, I would be willing to give you $500 more if you would be able to move even 2 weeks earlier. And they accepted my offer. So then we filled in the paperwork, they signed it. And when I went out, there was no issue. I went and inspected the property. It was pretty much what I expected. So, so I wrote them the check that I had promised to write them. They left happy. And then I brought people in immediately to clean, to paint, to put in new flooring, and had all that work done in a week. And then once I got it back on the market, it sold in 2 days.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's the thing, is people don't really want to inherit tenants, especially if it's not showing well. And can they even get in to see it? People on a whim are like, I want to see the house. And like, well, 24, 48 hours, you can see it on Thursday. And they're like, I'm going to go see some other houses before Thursday and then see about Thursday. So, with being in Central Alberta, Southern Alberta, these aren't major markets when we talk about population. So how do you approach finding and selecting the best tenants for your properties in these smaller markets? There's maybe a little bit
there's
more
smaller
empty.
markets, but there's high demand. As we have lived here now for the past 3 years, we've learned lots of people enjoy smaller cities and smaller towns. So, we've got 2 properties in Red Deer. That's a city of just over 100,000 people. And we have another property in Penhold, which is just 20 minutes away. And my tenant in Penhold says, Red Deer's too big for me. I don't want to live in Red Deer. I want to be in a small town.
I just want like 10 neighbors, period. And that's
exactly. And she wants her kids walking to school. So there right now, there's demand. I have a legally suited half duplex in Red Deer as one of the properties. I've just had tenant turnover. The upstairs unit is 3 beds, 1 bath. Not huge. It's only 900 square feet, but I listed it and had 100 inquiries on that unit. And then the basement unit, 1 bed, 1 bath, and I had about 60 inquiries on it. So there's demand out there.
What sort of tenant are you seeing out there? Are these families? Are these, single parents? Are these working people under 30? Like, what are you seeing for these, especially like a 1 bed in a small town? Like, where is that tenant profile come from?
Yeah, great question. I'm seeing all profiles, like our typical profile, because most of we like single family homes. That's where we
Mm,
started. So we were wanting to rent to families who may want to settle, have their kids in school, stay a number of years, and would take care of the property. So that's what we have, for example, in Lethbridge and Penhold. But recently in Red Deer, the people who were applying to come in were young couples, and so starting off their careers. They're, because of the industrial sector in Red Deer, I've got a lot of single guys applying who maybe work up north and are away a lot, or are the one gentleman I ended up accepting. He's a drywaller, so they're in the trades.
mhm.
But nothing wrong with that. And in fact, the fact that they know the trades, I find they're quite willing to help me out with a small repair around the place once in a while. So it actually makes my job as property manager easier when I rent to those kinds of folks.
Yeah, they don't really want to like put a hole in the drywall because now they got to fix it up. So they're going to take
Mm.
care of the thing. Now, typically when, the market's heating up in Alberta, everybody knows that it's become a thing, especially that everyone in Alberta likes to tell everyone that's not in Alberta that the market's heating up. You see it on social media all the time. Look, in province to province, net migration, we're number one, which is good, but the cat's out of the bag. So now, um, people are having to transition how they're buying things, agreement for sale, alternative financing strategy, creative methods, and burring things because you're not probably getting all the money back out and you're having to buy a little bit higher as competition for properties. Is that the
Hmm.
same with Central and Southern Alberta, or is that a big city problem in Alberta?
Um, it's uh, it's definitely a seller's market in central Alberta as well right now. So if you're trying to acquire properties, I've got a colleague who's just actually, I think who's just acquired some new builds
Mm,
and townhomes, and he's very happy with them. I think that's where having a good realtor and a investor focused realtor is really helpful. And
mhm,
I think you need to be clear of what kind of property you're looking for based on what type of tenant profile you want, and then work with a realtor who understands investing and can be out there hunting for you, because lots of realtors get tips on properties before they come on the market. So if you can have a realtor can give you access to those types of opportunities, that's always helpful. And then, yes, if you're willing to put in some elbow grease or have contractors that you can connect with, I think that a BRRRR strategy can be very successful. So
mhm.
that's when you buy, renovate, rent it out, and then you'll refinance that property later. So that can be an effective strategy. And the agreement for sale is an old strategy that's been around for a long time, but people are less familiar with it.
Mhm.
And so there's some learning involved. There's actually a lawyer in Edmonton, Barry McGuire, who's very well versed in agreements for sale, and it has a coaching program around that, actually. So if that's something that someone wants to consider, that's really where your seller becomes your financer for
Mhm.
the property and can help you get into a property with little to no down. It
Mhm.
is a bit trickier though with, the market having taken off. People do have some equity in their properties. And so um, agreement for sales can be a little tricky. It really depends on market timing, and if you can have a conversation with the seller to help them realize the benefits of that approach.
Yeah, it seems like agreement for sale or rent to own or lease option, or whatever name you want to put on it, seems to come and go with interest rates. If it's easy at the bank, people don't care too much. If it's hard at the bank,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's a conversation, especially in places like Fort McMurray where the bank is looking at this like brand new rigor and saying, well, probably not, but then you can put together a deal because their income is at a particular threshold and you can put something together, get them into that property in maybe 2 years or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah, I think with the
there,
agreement for sale, you have to understand it's about creating a win-win. A win for the seller, a win for the buyer, right? And because sellers aren't very familiar with that approach, then you just have to be able to help them understand what are the benefits to them. This isn't this isn't a scam. It's not a hoax. It's a very legitimate way of purchasing property. So if you're familiar with the conversation and can present it as a win-win opportunity for both parties, I think that keeps people more open-minded to it.
Yeah, definitely. And, the interest rate, people, if you can buy that interest rate and ride it out for a few more years, it might be the difference between having cash flow positive property versus a cash flow negative property,
Mm-hmm.
being able to buy that rate. Now, one of the main things with construction is repair costs, and really being able to rely on these contractors in the markets. Now, do you find that, um, we have in Manitoba where I do business here, it's pretty much just like Winnipeg and Brandon, and then 10,000 people cities all over the place, a couple of, different ones. And there's always people saying, "Oh, I need someone to come out and do a roof out here in the middle of nowhere." And then the contractor says, "Sure, I'll come out into the middle of nowhere, but," and then the invoice comes in. So how do you balance that? One thing that, as spending time in Alberta every summer growing up, it's a little more dense below Calgary. There's a city-ish every once in a while. So how do you build that network of contractors when you've got properties kind of spread out and really make sure that they're able to bring those costs in a reliable way?
Yeah, interesting question. I guess, again, that's for me, that's where my investor focused realtor is really handy. She's been in the game for years. She's done those renos, and actually, I've been able to tap into her network.
Right.
So finding someone who maybe already has that network in place can be super helpful. And I've also found, being in Central Alberta, at least in small towns, that people are just so helpful and friendly. Right. So if you can find someone, even just one contractor that you like, they have buddies, they know people, and good people tend to refer to good people. So I've really found that successful, is just asking questions, not just going to Google as my first source, but having conversations with people, talking to a roofing contractor, for example, and saying, well, who do you know who does such and such? And tapping into the, I guess, underground networks almost that way. And that's been really helpful.
Yeah, climbing through the referrals, and they're probably all at the same diner, in the morning, hanging out, or at the same Tim Hortons parking lot.
Exactly.
Um, what's the secret sauce? You've been in the business now for some time. What's the unfair advantage in the sense that, what comes easy to you that other people might find difficult to do?
Well, one of the big learning curves for me, but I'm so glad I dug in around this and took it on, was knowing the numbers. Everyone says you got to know your numbers. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but how do you do that? So I found it's not software, but it's really just a set of Excel sheets that a set of accountants, actually, a group of accountants down in the States, created these spreadsheets specifically for real estate investing. And that's been my secret sauce, is running the numbers and knowing my projections ahead of time, understanding that the banks are looking for a DCR, or debt credit ratio, of 1.2 on a property before they're going to approve a mortgage. And so I run absolutely every single property through this set of spreadsheets. I see exactly what I'm paying, what my closing costs are going to be, what my interest rate is going to be, what my rent is going to be. From looking online at comparable rents, I run all those numbers. And there's been times when we've been comparing 3 or 4 properties at the same time. So to be able to take the emotion out of the purchase and look at it strictly from a factual numbers point of view, see the projections, and and anticipate the growth over time, that's made our investments very successful for us.
Yeah, it's always come down to, it's not the deals you do, it's the ones that you don't, because one bad deal can kind of knock the whole house of cards down. So, what advice would you give to someone looking to start their real estate journey, especially in the single family game?
Start to talk to people, talk to a mortgage broker who is focused on real estate investment, talk to a realtor who's focused on real estate investment, and then start tapping into their networks. Learn how to analyze a property and run your numbers effectively. Learn how to do and then put some thought to what kind of person do you want to be renting to? Who's your target? Your tenants are your customers, they're your clients. And so who do you want to be renting to? Like a single family home, you're probably renting to a family. And now kids can be a little harder on a property, and maybe they want a pet, but you can make those accommodations in the type of flooring you have in the home, for example, and make make sure the home is a little more kid proof, if you will, or pet proof, because there's certainly lots of people out there with pets who find it very difficult to find a place to rent. So if you're willing to be a renter to someone with pets and charge that pet fee, I find people with pets often take better care of a property because they're so appreciative to have a place to rent, and because they're taking care of an animal, they tend to take care of their home as well. So
pet friendly, small dogs only.
Yes.
Small dogs only, maybe a cat.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I think the big thing here is like you've got consulting that you do to help people kind of navigate entrepreneurship and business. Is that right?
Yeah, that's sort of my day job, if you will. So
fill us in a little bit on that.
Yeah, so my company is Venture Coaching International. So I do business and leadership development with small business owners and C-level executives. And so I've been a coach now for over 20 years, and coming out of a counseling arena before that. So I'm really always been passionate about helping people. So by day, I'm working with business owners, helping them be better leaders of their businesses. And then I've coached a few friends and colleagues to get themselves into real estate as well. And in fact, a good friend of ours that I coached just last fall, he bought his first property last fall, and this spring he's now bought his fifth. So he's going fast. And so it's been really exciting to see him grow as well, and really take this on and achieve his goals.
Awesome. Awesome. So if people want to connect with you, they want to find out more, what should they do? How do they find you?
Well, my website's a great place to go. Venturecoaching.ca is my website as far as my coaching business is concerned. And then LinkedIn, listed under Laura Watson. It's pretty easy to find me. There's lots of content out there, some real estate related, some business coaching related. So LinkedIn and my website are great places to have a look.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by, Laura.
Well, thanks very much. It's been great to have this conversation with you today.
No problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.